वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। Welcome everybody. जी आया नु सारियां नु गुरमुख प्यारियो, today we are on Jup Banee class number 17 and we are going to be doing Pauree number 15. So the subject matter of Pauree number 15 is the same as the subject matter of Paurees 12, 13, 14, which we have already done, which is Maneh. And we understood in our last class, when we did the earlier Paurees of Maneh, 12, 13, 14, that there is a temporal meaning to the word Maneh and there's a spiritual meaning of the word Maneh. So the temporal meaning of the word Maneh is simply accepting something, as we say in Punjabi, man lena, tu meri gal man le. It means accept it. Or you take it one notch higher in the temporal sense, it means believing, main teri gal man li. However, that meaning does not apply in the spiritual sense, because we can accept and believe and do nothing. Spirituality is about doing. Spirituality is about becoming. Therefore, Gurmukh Pyareo, the spiritual meaning of Maneh will have to be defined as Maneh of the Shabad. The Maneh of the Shabad is distinctively different from the temporal Maneh as we use in a daily basis, and that really means becoming the Shabad. And if we don't translate it this way, becoming the Shabad, then the verses in Paurees 12, 13, 14 and 15 would not be translatable. Like when Guru Nanak says, Maneh ki gat kahi na jaye, I am unable to provide a narrative. So it cannot be a narrative of accepting and believing, because that one we all can provide a narrative. But what we are unable to provide is a narrative of becoming the Shabad. Okay? So keep that in mind, and we will look at all the verses. The first verse of Pauree 15 is Maneh Pauree Mokh Dwar. Okay, so let's look at the words one by one. Maneh again refers to the spiritual state of becoming. The question, becoming what? We want to become the Shabad. What's the Shabad? The Shabad is godly virtues. So Maneh is the spiritual state of becoming godly virtues. Pauree in the spiritual sense is realize, palya, have realized or realization. Mokh is the third word. The origin of the word mokh is mokat. Mokat, basically dictionary meaning is free from obstacles. Here when it comes to spirituality, we have spiritualities that are mired in obstacles and spiritualities that are free from obstacles. So that's the ultimate spirituality that we want. So therefore the spiritual meaning that will apply to this verse is ultimate. Then we have the word dwar, dictionary meaning of which is simply a door or a pathway. Both can be accepted in this sense. So dwar is pathway. Maneh Pauree Mokh Dwar. So let me draw your attention again to the succinctness, the summarized version, the summarized nature of Guru Nanak's writings, especially in Japji. So we have to put it all together and then make sense. Then this is the meaning of it. Maneh Pauree Mokh Dwar means the spiritual state of becoming godly virtues. That's Maneh. Pauree is the realization of what? Of Mokh Dwar, of the ultimate spirituality. So this is what Pacha Guru Nanak is telling us, that the ultimate spirituality of Sikhi is Maneh. Therefore it cannot be just believing and accepting. If Maneh is the ultimate spirituality, then it is becoming. Becoming the Shabad is indeed the end point of the practical spirituality of Sikhi. That is why Maneh is defined in this nature of spiritual terms. Maneh Pauree Mokh Dwar, the spiritual state of becoming godly virtues, is the realization of the ultimate spirituality. The next verse is Manne Parvare Sadhar. It is not very often in Gurbani, in 1429 pages, that you come across a sentence consisting of 3 words. Not very common. Yeah? So imagine now, we are going to make sense, and the way to provide sense to Gurbani is to apply context. Once you know the context that is running, then it becomes easy to grapple with what is the meaning of Parvar, what is the meaning of Sadhar. Okay? So now, Manne, we already know, spiritual state of becoming. The issue is Parvare. Parvar in the dictionary sense translates as family. We are not talking about, your spouse, your children, your relatives, your mama, your mummy. There is absolutely no issue of that kind of Parvar being discussed here. So it is family in relation to something. It's family in relation to the mind, because you remember, Manne is a spiritual state of becoming godly virtues at the mind level. So we had 4 bodies of mind level becoming, and before that we had 4 bodies of mind level Sune. So here the issue is the family of the mind, Manda Parvar. Haji.
You used the word becoming godly virtues.
Becoming the virtues, yes.
Is it assimilating godly virtues?
No, it's not assimilating godly virtues. You have to become the virtue. Now the difference between assimilating godly virtues is that you can assimilate at the same time have your own separate identity. So I can assimilate, for instance, to become an American, with American cultures, American values, American way of thinking. But at the same time, I can hold on very strongly to my separate identity as a Sikh, as a Christian, as a Muslim, or anything. That's assimilation, which means you have 2 sets of values side by side, on par, equal. Now that does not work in spirituality, because the opposite of godly virtues is human vices. So we cannot say, I am going to keep my human vices separate, distinct, but I am going to assimilate with godly virtues. Now that is what is called duality, is called Dvait. It works in temporal matters. You can assimilate in a family. When a woman marries into a family, a man marries into a family, we assimilate. We take on certain practices, certain cultures, certain way of life, certain beliefs and all that. But we do not lose our original mental makeups. So that's assimilation. That's co-option, another term for it. That's also unifying, 2 different cultures being unified. Now that is not what's happening in this sense. Yeah, in the sense of spirituality, it has to be becoming. In other words, we have to actually abandon our own value system, which is totally against godly virtues. God is fearless, we are fearful. They cannot exist together. Now, God is without enmity, that's a godly virtue. We as human beings, because we have the I, we cannot exist without enmity, without a second person. So the 2 things cannot exist together in the same system. Yeah? So it is 1 notch higher than assimilation, 1 notch higher than co-option, and that is becoming. So it is, Parvare is the family in relation to the mind. Now the family of the mind consists of the 5 senses. That's the family of the mind. It's called the family of the mind because that the senses are the one that act as a feeder system into the perceptions of the mind. Look around our families are feeder systems into the mindsets that we have. That's the job of a family. A family provides values, provides cultures, provides way of thinking that we adopt to develop our own mental makeups. So now the mind's mental makeup is always provided by the senses. Sight is a sense, what we see. Hearing is a sense, what we hear. So what we hear, what we see, what we taste, what we feel, what we touch, all these things are the family of the mind. So now it is not just about the mind, it's being extended to the family of the mind. And we'll see this importance of the family of the mind, the senses, as we go along this body 15 and we move into body number 16, becomes very, very crucial. Sadar comes from the word adar, which means the base, the basis, the anchor, or the root. So now we put it all together. Banee Pauree Sadar, the spiritual state of becoming godly virtues, is to root my senses in the virtues. This is crucial. The senses have to be rooted in the virtues. Now that is why Banee is not mere believing and Banee is not mere accepting. That is why Banee is not mere assimilating, not merely co-opting. Because in co-option and in assimilation, your senses need not be rooted in your belief system. You can have them separate. The senses need to be rooted in the virtue, so that is the definition of becoming. We become godly virtues when our 5 senses are rooted. There's a whole lot of a body in another side, talking about E Sarvano Meryo Sache Sorne No Pathai. You remember that when we did another side, yeah? It talks about the 5 senses. The 5 senses, once they are rooted in godly virtues, that is when the mind becomes the godly virtues. Other than that, the mind does not become the godly virtues, because the senses are all over the place. The senses are still rooted in vices. If my eyes still want to see distinctions, the virtue of Creator is non-distinctive, but my eyes always see you as different, see somebody as mine, somebody as not mine. So the ears, now I am supposed to hear unity. Everything is sound of God, sound of Creator, but my ears are distinctive. My ears are differentiating, and so I hear certain sounds that I like and certain that I don't like, you see. So then my senses are rooted in my own vices, in my I, in my ego, in myself. So that cannot be. So the spiritual state of becoming is actually to root. So that is the definition of becoming. Yeah, this is an extremely critical verse. Banee Pauree Sadar. It's critical because the faculties that are related to the senses, the faculty of sight, the faculty of hearing, the faculty of smell, touch, taste, everything, they feed and they provide data to the mind. Now if the senses are rooted in vices, in negativity and evil, they will continuously provide and feed negative data to the mind. The mind cannot then be rooted in godly virtues. So it is the senses that need to be rooted in godly virtues. Then they provide data which is godly, which is virtue based, which is positive to the mind, and then the mind becomes those virtues. Yeah. Now without the involvement of the senses, Gurmukh Pyareo, it is senseless believing. What we want is a senseful believing, a sense rooted believing. Word believing cannot be used because it's temporal. That's why, we don't have the language for it, but at least we can understand the concept. It is Banee of the Shabad. It's becoming the Shabad. The becoming is rooted in the believing and acceptance of the senses. So most of the time our believing is senseless believing and accepting, and there's plenty of that to share around everywhere in our spirituality, and that is called superficial believing, or another word for that is believing for the sake of believing. Another more popular word is believing on the basis of blind faith. Remember this, Banee Pauree Sadar, the sight has to be rooted in virtues. When the sight, I'm just taking one sense, when the sight is rooted in virtues, the sight has to be enlightened. The sight has to be open. The eyes have to be observing, seeing. The exact opposite of that is to shut your eyes, to close your eyes and not see. That is why it's called blind faith. It is faith which is not rooted in our senses. It is faith which says A, but the senses are pointing towards B, C, D and E. Critical statement. Imagine the force of this one verse, how strong and how powerful it is. So ours is not accepting for the sake of accepting. Our accepting, our manna is to be rooted in our senses. Manna, tare, tare, gora, Sikh. If there is one verse that is 100% wrongly read, misread in the Sikh world, it is this verse. First of all, it is not Gursikh. Guru Nanak separated the words. It is Gora different, Sikh different. It's the only verse that I've come across this far where every word has a pause. Manne, Tare, Tare, different things. Gora, Sikh. This is how this word is read. Every word is distinctly separate. Once you connect them, you get something else. It is not Gursikh. It is Gora and it is Sikh. Look at the words. Manna, we already know, spiritual sense of becoming godly virtues. Tara, literally swim across. Because this is a spiritual journey, it means the spiritual objective. When you are swimming across something, the objective is to get to the other side. So that's a metaphor. Tare means the objective. Tare is to provide the spiritual objective. So the objective is provided by somebody. We are merely hanging on or adopting the objective. That's why tare and tare are two different. Tare for somebody else, tare from somebody else. Manna, tare, tare. Gur here refers to the Guru and the Shabad. Sikh refers, from the word Sikhya, refers to the message, to the advice, to the guidance. So Gur Sikh would become an individual. It's not an individual. It means here the message and advice from the Guru. That's why it's Guru Sikh, Guru the Sikhya, Guru da Upadesh. Okay. Now we put it all together, and this is the verse that we're going to get. Manne, Tare, Tare, Gor, Sikh. The spiritual state of becoming godly virtues. Manne is the spiritual objective. Tare, as guided, Tare, by the Gurus, Gora, messengers, Sikh. Manne, Tare, Tare, Gor, Sikh. The spiritual state of becoming godly virtues is the spiritual objective. Where does it come from? As guided by the Guru's messages. And the practical definition of Manne is Manne of the Shabad. Manne of the Shabad is Manne of the Guru's messages, because the Guru's messages are the Tare. They are coming from there. And the Tare is the spiritual objective. The spiritual objective is to become the virtues. And the way to become the virtues is, first of all, to begin by rooting our senses in godly virtues. Our senses are rooted in vices. We see wise, we speak wise, we do wise, we think wise. And that's what's happening. Okay, we move on to the next line. Manne Nanak Pave Na Pekha. Manne, spiritual state of becoming godly virtues. Again, Pave is wandering or getting entangled. Na negates. Pekha comes from the word Pekha, Pekhi, Pekhatari. Dictionary meaning of Pek is pretentious, is fake. In other words, Pek means the outer form looks something else, but the inner is something else altogether. So that's the definition of pek. You can already get it here from the earlier verses. When the senses are rooted in vices and the mind attempts to be rooted in spirituality, that becomes a pretentious rooting, a pretentious becoming. It cannot be. So that is pek. So I suppose you can already get the meaning now. Manna, Nanak, Pave, Na Pekha, Nanak. The spiritual state of becoming godly virtues emancipates me from the entanglement of pretentious paths, wrong paths, paths that are in contradiction with the senses and the mind. That's where we don't want to go. So keep that in mind. The whole Vyakhya, the Katha, the narrative of the senses is critical, but is oftentimes ignored in our spiritual discourse. Lots of people put the senses into temporal life and say it doesn't matter. But Bani Tha Akhi Vekhna Rajiya Bau Rangatamase, so the spiritual meaning of sight, hearing, Sarvana Soe, Sonanenda Vichar, all that is mentioned. So the senses are part and parcel of spirituality, and these verses make it absolutely clear that spirituality that is not rooted in senses, virtuousness that is not rooted in the five senses, cannot translate into manna in any meaningful or Gurbani sense of the term. So that's the meaning of manna, Nanaka, Pave, Na Pekha. And the final verses, Aisa Naam Niranjan Hoye Jeko Man Jane Man Koi. We have already done these verses, Gurmukh Pyareo, in our earlier discourse. Aisa Naam Niranjan Hoye. Such is the nature of godly virtues. From here you should be able to get the meaning of the word Naam very clearly. The entire story has been one of godly virtues. All of a sudden, Aisa Naam Niranjan Hoye. Such is the name of the God. Where did the name come from? What has the name got to do with anything? So it is not about name, it's about virtues. Such is the nature of godly virtues. Aisa naam niranjan hoye, jeko man jane man koi, that to realize the Creator is to become the virtues. ਪੁਰਜੋਗ ਦੀ ਖਿਮਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਪਿਆਰਿਓ ਤੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਗੱਜ ਕੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਓ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।